Hello, lords and ladies of the realm. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the much anticipated season premiere of Game of Thrones. We are on season 6, episode 1, The Red Woman. So, spoiler alert, before I dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be endeavoring to bear all in this review. Of course, if there are any critical details or observations or what have yous that I happen to miss, that I don't address to your satisfaction in this review, I would love for you guys to bring up your thoughts, your reactions, your analyses in the comments below. This video is essentially just the beginning of the conversation, so with that in mind, let us get down to business. And I'm not talking about defeating the Huns. I'm talking about the freaking fate of Westeros and beyond, which is ever the question on my mind as we are now officially gearing up for the end game of this series. I mean, we have at least season 6 and 7 approaching, and any forthcoming seasons may actually be abridged as compared to seasons past. I don't freaking know what's going on. All I know is that this was an incredibly satisfying and exciting episode on many levels. I mean, satisfying not in the sense that we got a lot of solid answers to our dying questions. And speaking of dying, you know, wondering about what's going to happen to the seemingly dead and gone Jon Snow, whose body is still in our midst, and there's a lot that could be happening there. But this premiere is essentially the leaping off point to any number of things that could happen for our characters. And so we get to kind of glimpse the potential fates and directions of a lot of our main characters. People like Bran are still kind of on the periphery, hanging out with a three-eyed raven. That's a very exclusive deal, but I think that we are going to finally get to see more into that this season. So, alrighty, let's take stock here. Let's break things down, see who is doing what and where, and who is in dire straits or perhaps in a better place. So, we, of course, start off at Castle Black, the Wall, the Night's Watch, and the mutinous murder of Jon Snow that has just taken place. Fortunately, he does happen to have a few friends who take his body, lock him up. We've got Sir Davos and the whole crew. Everybody's there trying to figure out, okay, what exactly are we going to do about this situation now that Alistair Thorne has taken over to relatively little protest. He makes it pretty clear that, well, it has been known that he is no friend of Jon Snow, and he essentially explains to the rest of the Night's Watch that this wildling guy who, you know, threw in his stock with those crazies, how could he possibly be a fitting leader for the Night's Watch? How could he possibly have the best interests of anyone in mind? Clearly this guy was off his rocker, and it's time for a new rule, new reign. Of course, we do have to wonder what exactly is going to happen with the wildlings, if any of them catch wind of what's transpired with Jon Snow. I mean, everybody wants to know who is going to be the one to do something about Jon, i.e. resurrecting him. Is he going to come back as a Night's Prince? I mean, I have been reading up on this stuff just as much as anybody else. I have no freaking clue, and I don't want to speculate for too long because the show is ultimately going to do what it wants to do. Would I like to see Jon Snow come back in some glorious fashion? I say yes. I think that the show it's really starting to get in touch with its fantasy roots and really beginning to play with the supernatural. So this is as good a time as any to have Jon Snow kind of be the the first like major character to have something totally absolutely bananas bonkers happen to him, like in terms of him coming back to life. So anyways, that is going down there. Sir Davos, hats off to him for trying to head up this ill-fated venture to figure out how they're going to escape the wrath of Mr. Thorne, how they're going to deal with this treacherous act. He's got a pretty good head on his shoulders, so I trust and hope that he is going to act in a wise way and make a choice that does not result in unnecessary death. Remains yet to be seen. But anyway, so we get to go back elsewhere in the north and see Ramsay bid adieu to his late lover and proceed to arrange for her body to be fed to the hounds. So talk about honoring the life of the one you love in the motherfrickin' Ramsay Bolton way. So that goes down. And then, of course, Lord Bolton reminds us that not having Sansa is a rather, well, puts him in a bit of a precarious situation in terms of their relationship to the folks at King's Landing. And, you know, not having a way to produce an heir puts Ramsay in a bit of a sticky situation. So, in the meantime, Sansa and Theon / Reek are on the desperate run, and it does not last for very long until they are cornered. Reek does his damnedest to throw himself under the bus on Sansa's behalf and beseeches her to go to the north. Of course, we know that that's maybe not exactly where she wants to go. She doesn't really have any friends at Castle Black anymore, unless, of course, his friends who are still in the land of the living find a way to do something about his mortality situation. But anyways, let me talk about my favorite moment in the entire episode, that being Brienne's triumphant return with Podrick at her side. She takes Ramsay's hunting party by storm, pretty much axes everybody from the get-go. In fact, the last person to off one of the hunting party members was Reek himself. So could this perhaps indicate the return of Theon Greyjoy in a sense? You know, is he finally on the road to getting his personhood back? I mean, I think that he has definitely paid the price for his past crimes at this point, and I'm not really exactly a fan of seeing him dehumanized any further, much less Sansa herself. So finally, Sansa and Brienne are reunited. They swear the oath, and now Sansa has officially employed Brienne's services, and they are throwing their hats in the ring together, and we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, I was incredibly thrilled to see Brienne return, and it makes sense that she would be able to show up on the scene pretty quickly, judging by where she was in the finale. So this, of course, begs the question, are they going to decide to go north? What are they going to find along the way? And if they get there, are they doomed? Many questions I have in my mind. And of course, Sansa's probably going to try and get a little more intel on what's going on with Arya. We know a wee bit of what's happening there, just ever so slightly. But yeah, very, very emotional, poignant stuff. I was pretty much losing my brain that entire time. So we go back to King's Landing, where Cersei thinks finally she can catch a break after the walk of shame and all of the misery and despair that she has endured in Jaime and Myrcella's absence. But of course, of the two of them, only one returns. And so this sends Cersei spiraling into despair once more, and she is brought to her knees, essentially recalling the witch's prophecy where she learned of the deaths of her children, and she kind of crumbles and starts asking herself, why did I think that things would turn out differently? And this is a really humanizing moment for her character. We don't necessarily get a lot of those with Cersei. She does a very fine job of making herself excruciatingly unlikable, but in this instance, she is completely laid bare, completely exposed and vulnerable. It's as if she is doing the walk of shame naked all over again, except that she is trying to come to terms with the loss of this pure, beautiful child who essentially for her was the embodiment of her own goodness, if that ever existed within her. So it's really powerful stuff. And Jaime counters that by saying, you know what? Screw prophecy, screw fate, screw everything that isn't us. We're going to take this ship down, whatever the cost. So words like that are like, yeah, power to you guys, do your thing. But at the same time, this is going to lead to a lot of bloodshed and could perhaps go the opposite of in their favor. You know, they don't necessarily have a lot of people on their side at this point with the Faith militant running things at King's Landing. So they're going to have to really work their resources and use their skills and cunning to the fullest ability, because otherwise they're not really going to stand a fantastic chance. And we have to wonder too what's going to become of Marjorie and Loras, who are still in prison. You know, does Cersei really have the same bone to pick with Marjorie anymore? And it's interesting too to kind of see how the High Sparrow is almost trying to, you know, extend the dove of peace to Marjorie in order to get her to confess to her sins. But she is still convinced that there is nothing that she needs to do. And so even though, yes, there's the holy bond of her matrimony and her husband, the king, who misses her, her inability to own up to her imperfections is keeping her away from seeing him and from the goodness in the world. So it's interesting to kind of see the way that the show plays with morality, with what is truly doing the right thing, what is truly goodness in this world. So that theme comes up quite a bit in this episode. Now, this leads us back to Dorne, where there has been yet another insurrection, and now Ellaria and the Sand Snakes are running this business, and they dispose of is Prince Duran and his son very quickly. So hopefully this is going to mean a much more interesting and active role for the Sand Snakes in this season. From what little bits I've heard from different reviews, it seems like some people are not exactly a fan of what's going on at Dorne, and that Prince Doran was more of an interesting, well-rounded character in the books, and the show kind of gives him the short end of the stick in terms of what this guy is actually trying to do and what he's capable of. So my assumption now is that Dorne is going to be suiting up and getting ready for war. What Ellaria tells Duran before she takes him down is, you know what? You were weak. You did nothing in the face of all of these atrocities against us, against our people. Well, you are the weaklings of the past, and we are the ladies of the future. So, power to you women. Best of luck. Don't kill anybody that I like now, because I'm really going to hold that against you. But we'll see what's happening there. No clue at this point, but a lot of death, I would guess. You know, that's something that's not exactly a strange occurrence on this show. So let's see. This takes us back to Meereen, where Tyrion and Varys are attempting to find a way to restore peace and order and stability to this place that has been once again utterly rocked by the Sons of the Harpy. Now, it sounds like what Tyrion wants to do is get to the bottom of the Sons of the Harpy situation, aka the top, finding the leader who's giving the orders to these followers. So they're making their way downtown. Tyrion is trying to show goodwill to the unfortunate and is unable to communicate successfully. Varys is there in the nick of time to make sure that his good deeds are observed and recognized. But yeah, fun to have banter between those two, and I'll be very interested to see how they can put their heads together to save Meereen from the Sons of the Harpy. They also find another leader of the Lord of the Light religion who has kind of construing the disappearance of Daenerys into the need for the followers of the Lord of the Light religion to rise up and to fight against the darkness. So I sense that this religious movement is going to play a big role in the things to come. And of course, we do still have the Red Priestess, who may be kind of doubting her position in things as she has been unable to interpret her visions correctly. But it seems like the Lord of the Light is getting quite a bit of attention and quite a bit of renown, and it's really starting to, well, spread like wildfire, it would seem. So, and of course, Tyrion and Varys realize that they're going to be stuck in Meereen for a while with the burning of the Bayfront, and well, all the ships are gone. Not much they can do, so they may as well tackle the problem here. Put their political prowess to work, you know. Varys gonna let his little birds flit about and gather information, while Tyrion drinks and thinks. Does what he does best. So that's gonna be very fascinating. Now we switch gears over to Daario and Jorah, who are both on the Dany hunt. They are two ends of the love triangle going after the the third piece of the puzzle. And they seem to be getting along decently, all things considered. Of course, Jorah is still concealing his nasty little case of grayscale that's really starting to work its way up from his wrist. So he's inevitably going to reveal that he has this at some dramatic point in time. I don't know if, you know, that's going to involve another confession to Dany or what have you, but it seems like he's intent on keeping this quite literally under wraps for as long as he possibly can. He and Daario do discover Dany's ring in the field, and they realize that yes, indeed, she has been taken by the Dothraki, which leads us to where she currently is at, and having to travel with the Dothraki warriors and listen to them go on and on about women and sex and just all the things that the Khaleesi, of course, would love to hear about herself and other blonde-haired, blue-eyed women. It's pretty predictably abhorrent and nasty stuff. And then, of course, she ultimately meets Khal Moro, I believe his name is. And just as he is about to take her as a concubine and tries to undress her in front of all the wives and, you know, his whole posse, she's like, excuse you, FYI, I know everything that you said. Now I'm going to tell you who I am. And unfortunately, it is not until she reveals that she was the wife of Khal Drogo. It is not until she reveals that piece of information that they even show her the slightest bit of respect. Which kind of freaking sucks. You know, it's that classic situation of, you know, like a man refusing to respect a woman until she's like, oh, hey, like, I have to bring my man into this, you know. It's like, instead of respecting her on her own grounds and for who she is, well, doesn't exactly go in her favor in this situation. So even though it is announced that she will not be touched and she will not be violated in any way because she's the widow of one of the Khals, now apparently there is only one place where she can go, which is where all of the widows are. Doesn't sound like a very happy place, much less a fitting place for Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen. And yeah, we'll have to see how Dany is going to work her way out of this one. If her dragons show up in the future, I don't know how exactly she's going to get out of this situation, but thus far she has done a good job of making do and protecting herself and holding her own I hope that that continues to be the trajectory for her. And we also get to see just a wee little glimpse of the now blind Arya, who is still in her faceless training, but now she is also eyeless. So it's time for a little bit of daredevil training action. Get, you know, a little Rocky style montage for her. Poor friggin' Arya. I mean, I know that she's gonna rise to the occasion like nobody's business, but it sucks to see her just get whipped and smacked around. But inevitably, this is going to make her get on her 2 feet and use her brain, use and refine her other senses, and become even more of a badass. So that's great. And now all of this leads us to what's going on with the Red Priestess, who removes her dress and removes her choker and in fact reveals her true form as the old woman from The Shining. As everybody is saying. And I think to me that is an indication that she's trying to come to grips with who she truly is underneath, come to grips with her powers, what she's capable of, since, you know, everything that she has envisioned is going awry. So this is a vulnerable moment for her as well, kind of like what Cersei is experiencing back in King's Landing. So that's kind of where we're at this point. I'm excited as all get out to see what's next. And yeah, that's kind of my breakdown. So like I said, anything that I missed, any thoughts that you have, please share them. Thank you so much for watching this ridiculously long video. You guys are great and wonderful, and I can't wait to review the entirety of season 6 for you all. So you guys take care, and as always, I will be back before you know it.